Hi, welcome to Bubby's Reading Circle. I hope you enjoy our book today. Make sure you look us up on the web for more books.
Come on, Booty. Come on, Booty. You want to read a book? Say yes, Mom, I want to read a book. Good girl. Yeah, let's go read a book. Okay.
This is for all the grandbabies when we can't be there to read to you in person. We love you.
This is Beloved Fairy Tales. Today we're going to read The Lion King. It was a very important day in the Pride Lands. All the animals that lived there came from far and wide to celebrate the birth of King Mufasa's son. Rafiki, the wise old mystic, made a special mark on the new Prince Simba's head. Mufasa and Queen Sarabi, Simba's mother, looked on with pride. Then Rafiki held the cub up high at the edge of the Pride Rock so that all the animals gathered below could see their future king. The animals cheered for Simba as he looked around bewildered. They all fell silent and bowed to show their respect for him. Mufasa's brother Scar was the only one missing from the ceremony. King Mufasa went to speak to his brother. "Sarabi and I didn't see you there at the presentation of Simba," said Mufasa, when we reached Scar's cave. "That was today," Scar said in mock innocence. "Must have slipped my mind." "Yes, well, as slippery as your mind is, as the king's brother, you should have been first in line," said Zazu, Mufasa's majordomo. "I was first in line until that little hairball was born," replied Scar. "That hairball is my son, your future king," said Mufasa angrily. Mufasa knew that Scar was smoldering with jealousy and anger because the young Prince Simba had taken his place as next in line to be king. "What am I going to do with him?" worried Mufasa. When Simba was a little older, Mufasa led him to the top of Pride Rock one morning at dawn. "Everything the light touches is your kingdom," he explained. "One day, Simba, the sun will set on my time here, and I will rise with you as the new king." "What about the shadowy place?" asked Simba, looking into the distance. "That's beyond our borders. We must never go there, Simba," Mufasa replied soberly. "But I thought a king could do whatever he wants," said Simba. "There's more to being a king than getting your way all the time," his father replied. Mufasa tried to explain to Simba what being king was all about. "Everything you see exists together in a delicate balance. As king, you need to understand that balance and respect all creatures," Mufasa said. "We are all connected in the great circle of life." But when news of invading hyenas arrived and Mufasa had to leave Simba alone, later that day, Scar told Simba what the shadowy place was. "Only the bravest lions go there," he said slyly. "An elephant graveyard is no place for a young prince." "Whoa," said Simba. Of course, the young lion couldn't resist proving how brave he was, so he ran to get his best friend Nala. "Come on," said Simba. "I just heard about this great place." The two cubs soon escaped the watchful eyes of Zazu, who was supposed to babysit them. They headed for the shadowy place. Suddenly, they came upon an enormous hollow-eyed skull. "This is it," Simba announced. "Whoa," Nala said. "It's really creepy." "I know," Simba replied. "Let's go check it out." He was about to climb onto one of the huge eye sockets, then Zazu caught up to them. "We're way beyond the boundary of the Pride Lands," he said. "We are all in very real danger." "I laugh in the face of danger," exclaimed Simba. "Ha ha." "Ha ha," answered the elephant skull. Suddenly, 3 hyenas appeared. They were not pleased that Simba and his friends had trespassed into their territory. They laughed their evil laugh before circling the threesome. Zazu suggested that it was a good time to leave. "What's the hurry, Shinzi?" one of the hyenas said. "We'd love you to stick around for dinner." "Yeah," Bonsai added. We could have whatever lions around. Get it?" The hyenas rolled on the ground with laughter, and they loved a good pun. They kept coming up with new ones until they realized that their dinner was silently tiptoeing away. The hyenas caught Zazu by the tail while the trio was making its escape. Simba returned to try to rescue the bird, he growled his most vicious growl at the hyenas. "Why don't you pick on somebody your own size?" he shouted. When Shenzi went after Nala, Simba scratched the hyena on the nose. The hyenas chased Simba and Nala into the ribcage of the old carcass, which snapped closed, trapping them inside like the bars of a jail. The hyenas crept towards the trapped lion cubs. They chuckled softly. Their long, sharp teeth gleamed in the dim light. Just when Simba and Nala were sure all hope was lost, a huge paw slammered at Shenzi, knocking her down and sending her and the other hyenas flying. It was Mufasa. He had arrived just in time. The hyenas were no match for him. "If you ever come near my son again," the Lion King roared. The beaten hyenas fled with their tails between their legs. "Zazu," Mufasa ordered, "take Nala home. I've got to teach my son a lesson." When they were all alone, he continued, "Simba, I'm very disappointed in you." Simba tried to explain his behavior. "I was trying to be brave like you." "Simba, being brave doesn't mean you go looking for trouble," Mufasa said. "But you're not scared of anything," Simba insisted. "I was today," his father said. "I thought I might lose you." The Lion King and his prince looked up to the stars. The great king of the past looked down on us from the stars. Mufasa said, "Those kings will always be there to guide you, and so will I." Mufasa didn't realize that his own brother Scar was plotting to harm him and his son in order to take the throne. The next day, Scar led Simba into the deep gorge, telling him that Mufasa had a surprise for him. He left his nephew there, then signaled the hyenas, who started a stampede of wildebeest through the gorge. As Simba hung on to the tree for dear life, Scar yelled to Mufasa, "Quick! Stampede! In the gorge! Simba's down there!" Mufasa leapt into the gorge and snatched the cub out of the path of the deadly hooves. He set Simba safely on the rock ledge, but then the rock crumbled under Mufasa's paws, and he fell into the herd of wildebeest. Mufasa was badly injured. Gathering all his strength, he tried to crawl back out of the gorge. As he got near the top, he saw Scar waiting for him on the ledge. "Brother, help me," Mufasa begged. Scar leaned down towards Mufasa. He pulled his brother close and whispered, "Long live the king." Then Scar let go of Mufasa, and he fell into the stampeding herd. The cub raced into the gorge, calling for his father, but when Simba finally reached Mufasa, the great king was dead. While Simba grieved, Scar suddenly appeared out of the dust. "Simba," he said, "what have you done?" "He tried to save me," Simba answered. "It was an accident. I didn't mean for it to happen." "The king is dead," Scar said. "If it weren't for you, he'd still be alive." "What am I gonna do?" Simba sobbed. "Run away, Simba. Run away and never return," Scar told him. Confused and heartbroken, Simba began to run, but he soon realized that the hyenas were following him. They chased the cub all the way into the edge of the plateau. There was only one way out. Simba leaped off the cliff into a tangle of thorns. The hyenas were afraid of getting hurt in the thorns. Instead of following Simba, they shouted, "If you ever come back, we'll kill ya." With Mufasa and Simba gone, Scar was now the ruler of the Pride Lands. On his way to the top of Pride Rock to announce himself king, Scar made an announcement to the lions gathered below. "Mufasa's death is a terrible tragedy, but to lose Simba, who had barely begun to live, for me it's a deep and personal loss." Sarabi, Nala, and the other lionesses began to mourn. "It is with a heavy heart," Scar continued, "that I assume the throne." The wise Rafiki watched from a distance, shaking his head in disbelief. Meanwhile, injured and exhausted, Simba stumbled across the hot African desert. Vultures circled above him. Finally, unable to go any further, he fainted. When he woke up, a meerkat and a warthog were standing over him. They had pulled him to the oasis and splashed water on him. "You okay, kid?" asked the meerkat. "You nearly died," said the warthog. "Where are you from?" the meerkat asked. "Who cares?" Simba said quietly. "I can't go back." "Aw, you're an outcast," cried the meerkat. "So are we." Timon, the meerkat, and Pumbaa, the warthog, tried to encourage their new friend. You gotta put your past behind you, they told Simba. Hakuna Matata. Simba followed Timon and Pumbaa to their jungle home. He soon adopted their diet of bugs and grubs as well as their easygoing lifestyle. Time passed and Simba grew into a young lion. He was happy except when he thought about his father. One day he heard his friends cry out for help. He found Pumbaa stuck under a tree root while a hungry lioness approached him. Simba quickly leapt into action and pounced on her. As the lions tussled, Timon gave Pumbaa a blow-by-blow account. "Get her! Bite her head off! Go for the jugular!" Timon cried. The lioness had Simba pinned on the ground and she suddenly paused. She and Simba looked into each other's eyes. "Nala?" Simba asked incredulously. "It's me, Simba." Nala was delighted to find her childhood friend. Simba introduced everybody, but Nala could not stop staring at him. "Everyone thinks you're dead," she said. "They do?" Simba asked. "Yes," she replied. "Scar told us about the stampede." "What else did he tell you?" Simba asked warily. "What else matters?" Nala cried. "You're alive, and that means you're the king." "King?" Timon and Pumbaa looked at each other in shock. Simba and Nala went off into the forest to talk. Nala told Simba all about Scar. Simba let the hyenas take over the Pride Lands, Nala said. "Everything's destroyed. There's no food, no water. If you don't do something soon, everyone will starve." Simba hung his head and replied, "I can't go back." Nala could not understand why Simba would not help the Pride. "What's happened to you?" she asked. "You're not the Simba I remember." "Listen," he said angrily. "You think you can just show up here and tell me how to live my life? You don't even know what I've been through." That night, Simba was still thinking about his decision when the old baboon appeared. It was wise Rafiki. He told Simba that he could help him understand who he was and what he should do. "I know your father," Rafiki said. "I hate to tell you this, but he died a long time ago," Simba replied. "Nope, wrong again. He's still alive," the baboon said. "I'll show him to you." He led Simba to a pool of water and pointed to Simba's reflection. A breeze rippled the water and Simba saw his father's face. "You see," Rafiki asked, "he lives in you." Then Simba heard a familiar voice calling his name. He looked up at the stars and saw Mufasa's image. "You are more than what you have become," Mufasa said. "You must take your place in the circle of life." "How can I go back?" Simba replied. "I'm not who I used to be." "Remember who you are. You are my son, the one true king." Mufasa's answer echoed in the still night. "Remember." Then his father's image disappeared and Simba was all alone. Simba finally made up his mind to return home. As he crossed into his kingdom, he saw devastation everywhere. The great herds were gone, the grasslands were dead. Nala, Timon, and Pumbaa soon caught up with Simba. When they saw some hyenas, Timon and Pumbaa distracted them for a while Simba and Nala headed for Pride Rock. Meanwhile, at Pride Rock, the hyenas complained to Scar that the lioness has not brought them any food for days. "Scar, there is no food. The herds have moved on," Sarabi explained. Their only hope for us was to leave Pride Rock." "We're not going anywhere," growled Scar. "Then you have sentenced us to death," Sarabi replied. "So be it," Scar said. "I am the king and I can do whatever I want." "If you were half the king Mufasa was," Sarabi began, but their mere mention of Mufasa's name enraged Scar. As Scar roared at Sarabi, he looked up and saw a great lion outlined against the blaze of lightning. At first, Scar thought he was seeing Mufasa's goat, but Sarabi recognized her son. "Simba!" she cried. "Step down, Scar," Simba said. But Scar wasn't ready to give up. "If it weren't for you, Mufasa would still be alive. It's your fault he's dead," Scar said slyly. "Tell me it's not true," cried Sarabi. Scar and the hyenas quickly surrounded Simba. They forced him right off the edge of the cliff. Simba held for dear life. Scar looked down at Simba. "Now this looks familiar," he sneered. "Where have I seen this before? Oh yes, This is the way your father looked before he died, killed Mufasa. Now that Simba finally knew the truth about his father's death, his anger gave him strength to leap forward towards his uncle. Scar roared at the hyenas for help, but Simba and his friends too, Nala and the other lionesses as well, and Timba and Pumbaa attacked the hyenas. Scar took advantage of the confusion to sneak away. He didn't get far though, because Simba spotted his uncle at the edge of the Pride Rock and cornered him. Scar begged for mercy, but it's the hyenas who are all the real enemy, he said. It was their fault. It was their idea. Little did Scar know, but the hyenas overheard his betrayal. But Simba didn't believe his uncle. He repeated the advice Scar gave him years before. Run away, Scar, and never return, he commanded. Scar lunged at Simba. When Simba moved out of the way, Scar fell over the edge of the cliff. Simba could hear sounds of hungry hyenas drifting up from the gorge, revealing his uncle's awful taste. As rain began to fall, Simba stood at the edge of Pride Rock and roared triumphantly. The lionesses roared back with joy. The rest of the hyenas fled and were never seen again. Soon, under the wise, brave Simba, the Pride lands flourished, the herd returned to graze, and the grasslands grew back, and food was plentiful again. Not long after, the animals gathered once more to celebrate the birth of the king's cub. Simba and Nala watched proudly as Rafiki held their new cub high up over Pride Rock. Simba remembered his father telling him, "A king's time as ruler rises and falls like the sun. One day the sun will set on my time here and rise with you as a new ruler." Simba would someday pass these same words on to his own cub. The circle of life would continue. The end. Yay!
Come join us again tomorrow for another story from Bubby's Barnyard. Join us on the web for more books anytime.